Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Welcome to Vox Novus, the new voice. Karma is in our vocabulary, but do we really know what it means? The word is everywhere, not just in alternative spirituality and among Hindus and Buddhists, but in news reports, ads, sitcoms, sports columns, and the everyday conversation of people who wouldn't know the Upanishads from Us magazine. My guest this week on Vox Novus, Philip Goldberg, joins me to share a little karmic relief. Philip Goldberg has been studying the world's spiritual wisdom for more than 50 years as a practitioner, teacher, and author. His many books include American Veda, From Emerson and the Beatles to Yoga and Meditation, and How Indian Spirituality Changed the West, named one of the top 10 religion books of the year by the American Library Association. He has lectured and taught at venues throughout North America and India, and conducted online courses for platforms such as Spirituality in Practice, Embodied Philosophy, and Hindu University of America. He hosts the podcast Spirit Matters with Philip Goldberg at mindbodyspirit.fm, serves on the board of the Association for Spiritual Integrity, and writes regularly on his Substack, Practical Spirituality. His website is philipgoldberg.com, and he joins me this week to share his path and new book, Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life. Please join me in welcoming back Philip Goldberg. Welcome, Phil.
Good to be back with you, Vic.
Phil, this is our third interview together.
Amazing. Is that a record?
I actually have someone who has 5 interviews, but I'm not going to mention any names. But 3 is the next level of a record. So absolutely.
Okay, I'm honored.
Thank you and congratulations for this wonderful and timely new book. The last time you were on with me was in 2020, and we were discussing your best-selling book, Spiritual Practice for Crazy Times. And I kidded you about the fact that we were 2 boys from Brooklyn talking about Eastern spirituality. For listeners meeting you for the first time, please share your early path and how it led to your calling.
Well, as you indicate, I grew up in Brooklyn before it was hip like you, and when it was mostly a working class melting pot, ethnic and religious melting pot. And I grew up not just in a non-religious household, but an anti-religious household. But then when I was a college student, well, the period we think of as the 60s with capital S erupted. And I was one of the many people searching for answers to the important questions about life and wondering how to live well and have a fulfilling life and a not ordinary life, and wondering what I was, who I was, how do I fit into the rest of the cosmos. And as part of those the zeitgeist at that time, I discovered books about Eastern spiritual teachings. First Zen, because I was fond of the beat poets, and then what we think of as yoga philosophy and Vedanta philosophy, basically what the world thinks of as Hinduism and Buddhism, but without the religious overlay. And something about those teachings had a strong appeal for me, and I just wanted to read as much as I could. And I became immersed in it, and everything pointed to the importance of spiritual practices like mostly meditation at the time and what we think of as yoga. And so I took them up as a methods of self-discovery and self-improvement, and they worked and they transformed my life. And I got more deeply immersed in them. And years later, I became a teacher of meditation. And when I turned to what I think was my true calling professionally to write and speak and use my whatever gifts with words I had, um, I naturally drifted to writing about those subjects that had been so important to me personally. And in the last 15, 16 years, that's been the focal point of my writing and public speaking and so forth. So that's the nutshell version of it.
And that's a wonderful nutshell. Before we get into karmic relief, let's talk about spiritual practice for crazy times. What inspired that book, and what did you share with your readers?
It's odd, but the book came out um, shortly after COVID erupted. And so we added a one paragraph to the preface or the introduction. But most people thought I wrote it because times were crazy thanks to COVID. But I'd been working on the book for a year or more prior to that. No one expected COVID, but times were crazy, beginning in 2017, 18, when the Trump era began. So I wrote the book because people were struggling with how to make sense of things. And I thought spiritual practices of various kinds were very important in the equation of how to stay sane and how to stay stable and centered while dealing with the eruption of changes in the world. And then when COVID happened, it was just good timing. Well, bad timing for the world, but good timing for a book with that title. Um, and so there it is. And as the years go by, I find myself when the subject comes up of saying, well, it's still crazy and
Absolutely.
crazy in different ways. And so the book maintains its relevance.
Are you going to release it with a new forward?
I could, but I don't think in a sense, it's not even necessary.
Absolutely.
If anybody doubts that we're in crazy times, uh, they need more than a new forward to realize how crazy things are.
I remember an outstanding essay that you wrote entitled Spiritual Responsibility in the Age of Black Lives Matter. And to quote a
Oh,
line from that essay, you said, "Our long overdue moment of reckoning is a spiritual challenge, not just a social or political one. We're called upon to stretch beyond our comfort zones, to introspect rigorously, and self assess honestly." That was 5 years ago. Where did we go
wow.
wrong, and what made we do about it?
Well, I'm honored that you remembered that or dug it up. I didn't remember it, but I would say the same thing now, only in a different context. And the reason I did that is, the eruption of protests and everything after the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. It was a turning point in our social contract, in a sense. And as somebody of a certain age who came of age in the 60s during the civil rights era, it was shocking to me that that the fact of racism and what's called structural racism and all the inequalities that are systemic, that it wasn't just common knowledge, that it had to be revealed to people once again. And I found that shocking, but maybe it's just a reflection of my age or the times I grew up in. And now I think, we're facing a different kind of danger and threat. And one of the reasons I address that and have written certain things more recently is that, well, at a certain point, there was a tendency among spiritual people to think, oh, all this will pass, and this is just the way of things. And if we just continue to evolve us on a spiritual level, it'll all take care of itself. Um, and I felt that there was a certain escapism in that, or a certain denial or naivete that a certain people who care about other human beings and care about issues of justice and um, fairness in the world and would like to see unnecessary suffering ended, had a responsibility to engage in the world and not just think you can pray it or meditate it or mindfulness it away. Um, and I still feel that way. I think there's great threats to our freedoms and our democracy and what we hold dear. And people who are spiritually aware and compassionate and care need to do more uh, to engage in actions that might make a contribution, whatever that may be. I'm not calling on everybody to, storm the barricades. Not everybody is an activist, but anything we can do to make the world a little better, and not just internalize our spirituality in the spirit of other spiritual leaders who engaged in the world, whoever you want to call upon as a role model, whether Jesus or Buddha or the prophets or Thich Nhat Hanh or Martin Luther King or whoever. There's a certain degree of engagement that I think we're called upon to take up.
At the time, you shared that the remedy for this was taking on sacred citizenship. How do you
Mhm.
define that, and is it still possible?
I think it's not only possible, it's necessary, and I'm very encouraged. I'm involved with different aspects of the spiritual community. I'm on the board of the Association for Spiritual Integrity. I interview people on my own podcast all the time. I talk to people. And I'm very happy to hear that those signs of escapism and denial that I talked about, uh, that I observed 5, 6 years ago, are not happening now. People care and people are aware, and being good spiritual citizens, it matters to people. That spirituality is an internal thing and it's an individual thing. Those of us who are in position of communicating teachings to others or teaching them ourselves, um, we want to help people develop the internal spiritual resources of expanded awareness, inner peace, all those wonderful symptoms that go with spiritual growth. But we also want them to not turn their backs on their neighbors and their fellow citizens and the social and political realities, because we have a special responsibility, because we recognize the importance of the inner dimension of life as well as outer security, outer peace, outer harmony, because one feeds on the other. So I think it's necessary. I think it's um, not only possible, but essential.
Absolutely. What inspired your new book, Karmic Relief Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life?
Well, we talked about my early, long-standing interest in Eastern philosophy, and one key concept in that those systems of ideas and insights, um, is the concept of karma. And so I became interested in it early on and wondered if it was true and if it was really the case that there's justice in the universe and laws of cause and effect, analogous to the laws of physics, are in play, and that, as we say colloquially, we reap what we sow, what goes around comes around. All of our actions have a, a consequence in the world that comes back to us, whether wanted or unwanted. And it's a lovely framework for a fair and just universe, but is it true? And so I wrestled with that for many years and finally came to the conclusion that I can neither prove it nor refute it. No one can, uh, but that it's a good bet. I decided, to err on the side of accepting karma as a reality because I noticed that when I made decisions or when I looked at situations in life, assuming karma was true and real, um, and the universe was lawful in those ways, I made better choices, and I was a better person for it. And so that became an interesting addition to how I see the world. And to be honest, the title Karmic Relief came before before the idea for a book. Back in the days when Robin Williams and Whoopi Goldberg and Billy Crystal were doing the Comic Relief uh, charity TV shows, I thought I started using the term karmic relief. And at one point I said, gee, that would make a good book title. Maybe I should write a book about karma. And I put it on the shelf for a long time, but it became more and more relevant because the word karma kept being used in public more and more. I'd hear it on sportscasts. I'd hear it on news reports. I'd hear it in pop songs. Taylor Swift has a song about karma. Alicia Keys had a song about karma. Willie Nelson had a song about karma. So I kept seeing it and it showed up in everyday speech, but I realized people have an intuitive understanding of what karma is and means, but they often misconstrue it and get it wrong. And so I kept thinking maybe I should do a book about it. And eventually my wife and my agent convinced me to do it. And so here it is.
There it is. Where did the idea of karma originate, and what does it really mean?
The Sanskrit real translation is simply action. So you see references to karma in the earliest literature of the Vedic period of India, which goes back thousands of years, um, usually meaning action and then meaning ritual actions to create certain effects in the world. And over time, at least as they show up in the oral traditions and the texts from the East, it evolved into a deeper and more nuanced explanation of action in general. And the notion that um, everything we do, and not just do, but everything we even think and say, has a consequence in the world that is far reaching in its impact throughout the universe, almost like electrons and vibrations emanate through the universe, so do the vibrations of our actions and our thoughts. And they come back to us as what we think of, naively as good karma or bad karma, meaning there are consequences. And some of those consequences are things we're glad happened to us. And others are things we wish didn't happen to us based on what we've done in the past. And we're creating new karma all the time. And that's how, at a certain period of the Eastern traditions, it began to be more and more articulated. And eventually, sophisticated concepts of karma and explanations of karma came down, and they found their way to the West, along with the others aspects of Eastern teachings, and they eventually became part of our vocabulary and our frame of reference. I think if you ask most people if what karma means, they'll have a pretty good approximation of, we reap what we sow or something like that. But then again, as I said, it's a much more nuanced thing, and I felt an explanation in a book that clarifies what karma is and what it's not, and why it's a relevant and useful concept if we want to live a happier life. I felt the book would be useful.
It's interesting. You had mentioned the pop songs that feature karma, and I can only think back to John Lennon's Instant Karma.
Right. Instant Karma. It was one of the early ones, early 70s. But then I did a search when I thought about the book, and like more than 150 titles came up on iTunes with the word karma or karmic in the lyrics or the title, including, as I said, Willie Nelson had a song called A Little Old-Fashioned Karma. And then more recently, Alicia Keys and famously Taylor Swift and others. There was a song in I think the 80s called Karma Chameleon. Remember that one?
Boy George, Karma Chameleon, yes.
Yeah. But most of them are about, they're in the genre of music of, you done me wrong and now you're going to get it.
Absolutely.
Karma's going to come after you.
Absolutely.
And that's how most of us think of when you hear people use karma. It's usually in the negative, like your team loses, they have bad karma.
Yeah.
Candidate makes a mistake, bad karma. Something happens in the world, it must be karma, bad karma coming back to the person. But all the good stuff is karma too. And we forget that. We're filled with blessings in our life all the time. It's good karma that I'm here talking to you, and it's good karma that your listeners are maybe learning something, and it's good karma that you got a check in the mail today, or that you got a new job, or you met someone you love. All these things are a product of good karma, and we forget about that. But it's important to keep aware of it.
My guest is Philip Goldberg. His new book, Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life. Phil, please share with our listeners where they can get all of your books and find out more about you.
Well, you get all of my books, including Karmic Relief, in the usual booksellers. If you like using Amazon, they're there. If you like using other booksellers online, they're there. If you like going to your local bookstores, which I encourage people to do, I hope the books are in stock and they'll certainly order them for you. My website is philipgoldberg.com. My Substack, which I write on fairly often, is called Practical Spirituality. And my podcast is called Spirit Matters.
And we'll be back with more of Phil after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
We're back with Philip Goldberg, his brand new book, Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life. Phil, are the popular notions of what karma is at all accurate?
Oh, they're mostly accurate in the general sense. People know that karma and the laws of karma are indicative of a universe where everything we do matters and has consequences, whether good or bad or indifferent, and that every karma, if it's real, suggests that whatever we do has consequences for us as well. So generally, yes. But at the same time, there's a lot of misconceptions, and I run into misuses of the term or incomplete uses of the term all the time. For example, I just mentioned in the last segment that we have a tendency to think of karma or use the term karma when bad things happen, as if it were retribution by some cosmic judiciary for us doing bad things in the world. But karma, the laws of karma apply to everything. Everything that happens is the result of past karma. Everything we do now in the present will produce karma in the future. So the good things, the neutral things, and the negative things are all the product of karma. In physics, there's the concept that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and that applies to the material universe, Newton's laws and so forth. Karma is very similar. It suggests that everything we do and say and think has an equal and opposite reaction. So we send out everything reverberates through the universe, and it affects other people and the environment in different ways to different degrees, depending on distance and the closeness of relationship and all those multiple factors. And they come back to us in ways we can't predict or even necessarily anticipate. Sometimes it's obvious. If you insult somebody, the chances are you'll reap the consequences of being cruel fairly quickly in some way or another. You run a red light, you might suffer the consequences immediately with a ticket or an accident, or maybe not. But some things are sort of what John Lennon called instant karma. But for most of our actions, they're much more subtle, much more nuanced. They interact with the karma of other people. So things get a little uncertain and unpredictable, but everything is karma, and everything we do will come back to us in one way or another at some time or another. But it's not just retribution. It's not like somebody, some God figure is calculating rewards and punishment. It's more like the laws of science. There are causes and effects, just like there is if you throw a pebble in a pond or hit a billiard ball on a pool table. There's consequences that reverberate and bounce back.
Are there things that are not part of karma?
No, not if you take the laws of karma seriously and the theory of karma seriously. Everything in the manifest world is subject to the laws of karma. What's not subject to the laws of karma is the spiritual realm, the transcendent realm that's beyond time and space. that's beyond causes and effects, beyond forms and substances. The the spirit, the world of spirit that has different names depending on the spiritual tradition you turn to, whether you call it Brahman or Buddha nature or in the West God, that aspect of existence is beyond karma. And we can, part of my book is the importance of recognizing that and accessing that uh, aspect of existence, that eternal, infinite aspect of existence we call spirit, because it's the best and most effective way of changing our karma, of putting ourselves in a position to act effectively, to create better karma going forward, and to neutralize the effect of past karma that's going to continue to come our way. So when you say, is anything not karma? The answer is no, because spirit is not a thing. But the spiritual realm that we think of as, divine and infinite and eternal, that's beyond karma.
And in the book, you share that karma is about doing the right things, but then also not about doing the wrong things. How do we protect ourselves in that way?
Well, as my grandmother, when I was growing up in Brooklyn, used to say, be nice. That's the short answer. Every spiritual tradition has codes of ethics and morality. Every secular system of ethics has do's and don'ts that are not just for the sake of social cohesion and social harmony and the welfare of others, but for our own well-being. That said, in some ways, doing the right thing, not doing the wrong thing is encoded in various ways in different systems. And I would invite listeners to turn to the system of ethics that is most familiar to them and most comfortable. In the book, I focused on the ethical systems of that came from the East because they specifically address or assume that karma is part of this, consideration. And when you look at that, and you look at any ethical system, some of it seems very simple. Be nice, do good things, be kind, be generous, be loving, don't be selfish, don't be cruel, don't hurt people. Essentially, the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. There's some statement like that in every religious and spiritual tradition. There's nothing particularly Christian or Jewish or Hindu or whatever about that. It's universal. But then you get into nuances. So that's where the subtleties of karma come in. And different guidelines for how to be in the world and how to treat other people and how to engage in your responsibilities to your community and so forth. There are varieties of that, and I devote some space in the book to that, and I invite readers to explore that and go a little deeper than just the ordinary ethical codes, because especially when you bring in the spiritual dimension, it gets quite nuanced and quite subtle. But basically, do the right thing, don't do the wrong thing, and be aware. One of the things that paying attention or, assuming karma is real does for you is it may make you a little more likely to think, well, what's the right thing to do here? If I don't do the right thing, there'll be consequences for me. So I should do the right thing. And sometimes it's not necessarily obvious. because life is complicated and our relationships with people are complicated. So sometimes it takes a kind of intuitive sense of what's right. Sometimes it takes seeking guidance from others or, any other way we can make good decisions in the world.
What you had just mentioned about the golden rule, that there's an iteration of that in virtually every religion around the world, is something that I learned when I attended the New Seminary Interfaith back in the
Uh-huh.
1990s. And
Yes.
also, while attending that seminary, one of the spiritual lessons shared was everything is unfolding in divine order. We were taught that we may not see it with human eyes, but we
Right.
will if we use our spiritual eyes. Is that a Western iteration of karma?
No, well, it's Western in the sense that it's English and framed in a certain way, but you find the same principle in Hinduism and all the what's so-called dharmic traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism especially, but also Jains and Sikhs and Taoists. You'll see similar things, and just expressed in different words. That everything happens for a reason, whether we can decipher it or not. And sometimes we can attune ourselves and have a sense of why things are happening, or and if not, that's okay. Just knowing that things are unfolding on a level beyond our comprehension in ways that have antecedents in the past and are unfolding in a certain way. It doesn't absolve us of responsibility, though. And that's a danger in thinking, well, it's God's will or the universe is, doing, presenting us with, a phenomena that we can't comprehend, but it's all good, it's all unfolding as it needs to do. It doesn't mean we don't intervene and we don't contribute. Martin Luther King famously alluded to that when he said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And that's historically true. But we can't say, well, it'll bend toward justice, so we don't have to do anything. Maybe we need to help it bend or bend it more quickly in the right direction. But yes, and one of the things that's important about karma is there's a line in the Bhagavad Gita that says that karma, the ways of karma, meaning the details, the minutiae, are unfathomable, beyond the comprehension of human beings. You see the same thing in the book of Job. Essentially, God appears to Job and says, you can't understand this vast, complicated cosmos and why things unfold as they do. Don't even try. It's a waste of time. But if you accept, this is what the universe is putting before me at this moment. I didn't anticipate it. I didn't want it. But I accept that it's the result of my past karma. You accept that, and then you take responsibility for how you respond in the moment, because what you do now in the face of reality will determine your karma going forward. We're always experiencing the effects of past karma. We're always creating future karma in the moment, in the present. And that you don't even have to accept all the laws of karma as a cosmic phenomenon to understand that. Any good psychotherapist will tell you, well, things are happening to you now. Accept the reality, learn the lessons that have to be learned, and make the right choices going forward.
You had touched upon this before. Tell us more about some of the karmic spiritual practices.
Well, I'm a big advocate of and practitioner of meditation. I've been meditating every day since 1968 when I was a toddler. Um, but so I have learned the effectiveness of meditation practices when they're done regularly and when they're deep and authentic. So that's always been the centerpiece of my spiritual repertoire and what I advocate for others. Some form of deep inward turning, whether you call it meditation or mindfulness or prayer or whatever. There's, of course, one of the blessings of the modern world is that we have a tremendous variety of practices available at our fingertips that we can learn. It's also a bit of a burden because we have to make smart choices. There's a lot of nonsense out there as well as a lot of effective practices. But there are practices that would be suitable for everybody. And so it's a question of looking into them and finding what works for you. And then supplementing it, I would say, with practices that are done before meditation or after meditation, prayer, chanting, uh, congregational worship, physical practices like yoga and Tai Chi. I mean, there's a huge variety, and I recommend that people find practices that suit their needs and that are effective. And how do we know they're effective? In my estimation, you judge it not by what happens during the practice, but how it affects your life afterward. Are you more at peace? Are you less subject to anger and eruption of loss of temper or anxiety or depression? Are you more likely to behave in a kind and loving manner? Are you more likely to have maintain some peace and equanimity even when things go bad so you can make smart decisions? Evaluate your practices. Don't just do them because someone, says you should. Uh, Try different practices. But the key to me is setting aside time every day for some form of inward practice because you'll notice a difference in your life afterward.
His new book, Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life. We'll be back with more of Phil Goldberg after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Back with Phil Goldberg, we're talking about his brand new book, Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life. Phil, what are the differences, or are there differences, between the words karma and dharma?
Oh, good one, Vic. Well, there are differences, but they're very complementary. Um, Karma, we've been talking about, so there's no need to define it. Dharma is an equally nuanced concept. It's often translated as duty, D-U-T-Y, but that is rather inadequate. Dharma has to do with that which upholds, that which sustains. So something is in accord with Dharma if it sustains life if it sustains growth and development and well-being. Um, and it applies throughout the universe, but we think of it mainly in terms of our behavior. So each of us has a dharma to the people in our family. So we have the dharma of a son or daughter to a parent. We have the dharma of a parent to our children. We have the dharma of a sibling to our brothers and sisters, and so on and so forth. We have a dharma as a professional, uh, which so if you're a doctor, you have your dharma is to heal and do no harm. If you're hosting a podcast, your dharma is to convey information and truth. So everything has a specific dharma, or in a traditional society, it would be laid out as this is your duty. This is what you must do in this context, in that context, in this role that you play in life, and so forth. That's how it was traditionally. These days, in our complex world, sometimes it's a little difficult to sort out what our dharmic duty or responsibility is in any situation. But essentially, if you are tuned into your dharma as a professional, as a family member, as a member of a community, in terms of your callings and responsibilities in life, you will behave in a way that's harmonious with your environment, and therefore you'll be creating good karma for yourself and others. If you go against dharma, then you're creating negative karma, and unwanted consequences will follow. So they complement one another in that way.
Does karma exist between conscious beings and material things that we do not attribute consciousness to?
That's interesting. You would have to say yes, because we know we impact the material environment. Look at climate change and the effects of human behavior on the natural environment. I mean, if we toss a can of motor oil in the local creek, we're creating that's we're doing something with karmic consequences. And if we do that intentionally, knowing it's harmful, presumably the consequences will come back to us in some way that we would not be happy about, because we're doing something harmful to the natural world and potentially to other human beings. So yes, everything we do has an effect that reverberates through the universe. It may affect, I mean, what I'm saying now is affecting my camera and my microphone and the desk in some way, because words, sounds have vibratory impact, but the effects are inconsequential. Nothing's happening that I could see to my desk or the monitor or my computer. But if I say something nasty or harmful, then that has consequences because of the meaning of my words. And that may not affect the desk, but it's going to affect the listeners and so forth. So you could say that everything we do has an effect on everything that it touches in terms of energy, but some of the effects are inconsequential and some are important.
Is there a way of correcting karma for mistakes made during a lifetime?
Absolutely. And that's a critical part of what I wrote about in Karmic Relief. We've done things in the past, all of us. So unwanted things are going to happen, no matter how happy our lives are, no matter how blessed we are, no matter how evolved and deeply spiritual are, stuff's going to happen. We're going to suffer loss. We're going to get sick. We're going to lose loved ones. We're going to be disappointed. Our team will lose. Our, stock portfolio will go down or up or whatever. Things happen. The world is complex, and there's always a certain amount of, you could say, suffering or pain or discomfort or discontent that is inevitable in the midst of happiness and joy and love and all the good things. So, can we ameliorate or neutralize the effects of negative karma from the past? The answer is decidedly yes, and all the teachings on karma emphasize that. There's a chapter in my book titled Avert the Danger That Has Not Yet Come. And one of the factors in that is to behave in the present so that your karmic balance sheet, so to speak, of good karma and bad karma improves. And then if something negative happens, if challenges arise, whether they're physical or mental or emotional or social, we're better equipped to respond effectively. And if we have a deep inner reservoir of stability and strength and inner peace, when stuff happens, it won't shake us up as much. We won't suffer as much, and we'll be able to make smarter decisions about how to handle the situation and what to do going forward. Long time ago, I was blessed to hear a spiritual teacher use an analogy, a very practical analogy. If you take out a loan for business purposes or mortgage or whatever, at a certain point, that loan is going to come due. Like that, you do things in the world, you behave, you make decisions. It's like taking out a loan. The consequences will come back, and what you do will come due. So if you do something slightly dishonest or harmful to somebody else or selfish, it'll come back to you at some point. Then the question is, what do you do in the interim? In the case of a loan, if you're careless with your money, if you don't bother to earn enough, then when the loan comes due, it's going to be hard. It's going to hit you hard. You're going to suffer. You're going to be, there's going to be pain. There's going to be price to pay. If, on the other hand, you're conscientious and you earn money and you save money and you're responsible with your money, when the loan comes due, it'll be, it'll roll off your back, in the proverbial way, because you have savings, you have a reservoir. And it's similar with our internal qualities. If we develop ourselves in a way that gives us inner strength and stability, then if bad karma happens, we'll handle it well. We'll look at it as a lesson, which is, I think, a terribly important part of karmic relief. Understanding whatever happens to be part of our lesson plan, and ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? And how can I do things better moving forward so it doesn't happen again and good things happen instead? And so, yes, that's a big part of the equation, and I'm glad you asked the question.
His new book, Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life. My guest, Philip Goldberg. Phil, one more time, please share with our listeners where they can get all of your wonderful books and find out more about you.
My books are available on the usual online booksellers, from Amazon to the independents, and I hope local bookstores and libraries, which I want to support. They can learn more about me at philipgoldberg.com. They can subscribe to my Substack writings on practical spirituality. And they can tune into my interviews with wonderful guests on Spirit Matters podcast. Thanks for asking, Vic.
Oh, absolutely. And I understand you're going to be making 2 appearances here in New York in December.
Yes, book related. For Karmic Relief, I'll be at Tibet House on December 6th, 1 o'clock. That's a Saturday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'll be at the Vedanta Society on the Upper West Side on Sunday morning, December 7th.
Phil, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this wonderful wisdom that you've collected through the years.
Thank you, Vic, for having me and giving me the opportunity, and for all the good work you do.
And thank you for joining us on Vox Novus. I'm Victor, the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.